Our season has taken us to faraway places such as Belgium, Austria, the Netherlands, and even Italy. But with this being a North American-based club, we're going to end it at one of the most iconic tracks in the U.S., Daytona. Get ready for a real fight for the title as we get ready to watch the PCA Sim Racing Series 11 entry class, and you'll see it all live here on RaceSpotTV. Hi, I'm Joe Peak, and with me in the booth tonight is Reese Gardner. Behind the scenes is our director, Ramir Cisneros. Well, Reese, we get to see the entry class drivers wrap it up tonight. And of course, we've got the two different run groups that are fighting for their respective championships at what is a track that many will know well.
Absolutely. Daytona International Speedway. It's a historic circuit. If you're familiar with American road and oval racing, you're obviously familiar with this place, and we are racing on the 24-hour sports car layout for this round. What it means is slipstream is going to be essential for success, and it's going to be very important for drivers to negotiate the infield cleanly on lap one. And look at how close the standings are.
Yeah, Michael Schultz is currently leading it with Sosnowski, tied with him. However, from what I have been told, Sosnowski has graduated from the entry class, so he will not be competing for that tonight, as Beltran only behind by 2 points. Owen's only back by another one behind that. Even Bryce Rodriguez has a pretty realistic shot at trying to make this one work. So keep an eye out as drivers will definitely be fighting hard and fighting for every single position, essentially, here tonight.
Yeah, indeed they will be. Considering there's 25 points for a win and you get 5 points less for finishing second, basically, among those top drivers, whoever finishes ahead will likely take the title, but the points gaps are going to be incredibly tight. Oh, man, I'm looking forward to seeing how this works out, Joe. We're currently in the last few minutes of practice before we get into qualifying, and the drivers are already out getting their final preparations in for this race. We've got a solid field of cars that are competing here tonight as well.
For those that aren't familiar, the entry class is exactly what it sounds like. This is the first class you'll come into here when you join the PCA. And drivers will, as I mentioned, graduate from here into 4 other classes that they can race in, which is the Challenge, Sport, Club, or Pro. We'll see the Club and Pro classes later on this week on Wednesday and Thursday night, each crown their champion as well. So we'll have more racing to come after this one, but this is going to be special as these drivers in the entry class haven't had their races broadcast up until this evening. So they'll want to put on their best faces and their best foot forward to try and get a good result as we check out the 097 coming around through the International Horseshoe to work his way through the infield. It does work the same, of course, Reese, as the other races, though, as the drivers will be competing for a 40-minute event with at least one pit stop. So at least for our viewers that have been watching the other ones, this is pretty much the same format.
Yeah, indeed it is. If you've been following PCA over the last week or so, we did have the 2 other categories that these drivers are split into racing over the last week, and it was a very exciting championship conclusion in the challenge class. I'm certainly expecting more of the same here tonight. I mean, the nature of Daytona, there's very high speeds being reached on the oval. Drivers will be in the slipstream trying to dive up the inside of turn 1. We'll probably see some fantastic defenses. What we also saw was drivers making mistakes in very crucial places around the racetrack. So I'm wondering how well the preparation's been going for the drivers at the top of the standings here tonight. Marcel Yunez currently working his way through the second horseshoe, the western horseshoe, around the lap. Yeah, I think the dichotomy of slow, twisty infield versus fast, slipstreamy oval is going to produce some interesting action.
It almost always does, and yeah, it certainly is pretty much always fun to watch out here. We'll see who can manage it the best amongst our drivers because they've got just a few moments of that warm-up left to go. Now, if you're watching and we're not covering your favorite driver, we posted a link in the YouTube chat for our live timing, so you can follow along as we go and make sure and keep track of all of your favorite drivers during the entire race, just in case we aren't keeping up with them on the screen. Checkered flag comes out for the practice. Qualifying, though they have 10 minutes to try and set a lap, they only have 3 laps that they are allowed to run. So if you take off early, you can't just keep on running laps and put as many times in as you want. Once you've got those 3 laps, your qualifying is done and your best one will count. So we'll see who can manage to get the best out of these cars on this one. They do have quite a variety of skill levels on this entry because this is just kind of mostly sorting drivers in a sense, as well as introducing some of the newcomers into the series. I see everything from 6,000 level I rating to 600, and I mean that literally.
Yes, indeed. A very wide spread of talent in this league. It also means that there's likely going to be someone to race with no matter where you are in the field. Already, Kevin Sandiego out on track in qualifying. Sandiego set the fastest time in practice, and he looked incredibly quick. 1 minute 44.3 was the pace that he set. I'm unsure if he got slipstream on that lap, but that is mighty quick around this place in the Porsche 911 GT3R.
It really is. So I'm pretty sure he's going to wind up in one of the higher classes once he is through with the entry class here. And as he comes around to the bus stop chicane, this is his out lap, so he hasn't started this first flyer yet. Definitely want to be careful through that chicane there, Reese. I feel like that's perhaps the biggest and easiest place where you can pick up those incident points and have your laps deleted.
Yeah, indeed. That's something else we have to consider for qualifying. You do get 3 laps, as you said, but if you mess up on 2 of those laps and get an off track somewhere around the circuit, particularly in the Le Mans chicane, the bus stop chicane, then you're going to have all the pressure on you for your final lap. Michael Schulze now coming through turn 1 to begin his first lap, making his way through the infield section. This first hairpin that they come to is going to be one of the spots, I think, on lap 1 where we're going to see some drama. It's a heavy braking zone and drivers will be looking to make up as much time as they can, but this infield's also very narrow, Joe. There's only room for 2 cars to go side by side through this part.
It definitely is dramatically different in more ways than one from the oval portion. There's not much room to maneuver, and it's been changed very little over the years, but now is where the track absolutely opens up. I mean, look at that. It is just fields of pavement on either side before you get up to the banking, and now it is foot to the floor until they reach that line, that timing line for the end of your lap. Michael Schultz is going to bring it down into the last braking zone that you've got on the lap here into the Le Mans chicane. So hopefully he can make sure and hit those apexes nice and tidy. Looks good to me so far. And off he goes to try and wrap it up. But this is it. If you didn't get that good run out of the Le Mans chicane, basically you have to sit and watch that ticker up at the top, if you have it up there, go steadily towards the red.
Absolutely. All you can do now is keep your foot to the floor and wait for the start-finish line to come. Schultz across the line, 144.5, but Kevin Sandiego immediately half a second faster at the top of the field. Might we see a 1 minute 43 in qualifying? Certainly a possibility.
San Diego's only 800ths off of hitting that mark. So yeah, I think you're right that it is looking pretty darn likely. They're all out here on a solo run though, so you won't see Kevin try and pick up the slipstream from anybody during this session, as Alan Owens puts himself into 5th on his first time around, but we're still missing about half the field that need to set a time in this race, as Alan's going to take it down through the kink and into the Western Horseshoe as well. So looks like we just need Biggins, Robinson, Bess, Rumley, Duncan, Stern, and Zendeja to try and set a time. 12 drivers on the board. San Diego still after the first lap with the provisional pole and still holds those 0.4 of a second over the 097.
Yeah, this is a very good pace here for Kevin San Diego. Of course, he's down in 6th in the championship, and of course, you get 25 points for a win. So I think he's going to be depending on a poor result for everyone ahead of him if he wants to try and take the title here. He's 13 points back from Michael Schulze and Chad Sosnowski at the front of the field. And of course, Sosnowski not here, so it's all up to Schulze to see if he can keep up the pace, keep up his pace in the race. Matthew Robinson, meanwhile, coming to the line in the number 5. He's one of the drivers that hasn't set a time yet. Touching the white line, improvement from William Wolf. He goes up to 6th spot, but Matt Robinson immediately pipping him to that. 145.6 is the lap for him. Looking like a pretty big spread between drivers in the infield for the time being.
Absolutely, and just watched Aaron Sunday come across and massively improve down to a 46.7. Unfortunately, Aaron stays 10th with that one, so it looks like it's getting to be big gaps at the farther end of the field. Jason Rumley, in the meantime, first lap also got deleted for him. I think, yeah, he should have enough time for both the laps, although it might be a tad tight. He'll come around this second time. Do my eyes deceive me, though? Does he have damage on the front and is missing part of the bumper?
Yeah, unless he's painted the front bumper black, I think that's an issue there for Jason Rumley. Let me double check for him. Yeah, he is missing that front bumper. So he's obviously had a very big issue around one of his qualifying laps. He's just started his third and final one, but is continuing on.
Yeah, I guess he doesn't have much of a choice on that one, or maybe just simply isn't aware of the damage as you'd expect. He's a little off the pace with that very poorly looking front end. San Diego, third time around, didn't improve on the second lap, so we didn't see that 43-second lap around here last time, and we didn't this time. Apparently first go was his best go, so, and not enough of an improvement for the 097 as Michael does close in to within 0.2 of a second, but he'll stay on the front row.
Will Wolf, meanwhile, not able to improve on 7th. He did set a personal best there, 145.9. Marcel Yunez now on his final run to the line as well. Seeing an improvement for Jeff Block. He's just gone up from 13th to 11th, 147.8 for him. Now let's see what Marcel Yunez can do here. The gap that he needs to improve his position is about 0.2 of a second, and he's fallen down to 13th because Luis Zendejas has decided to go for an improvement on his last lap, and that is the improvement that Yunez will be looking for, back up to 11th in the dying moments. Nicely done.
Checking to see if we have anybody who can complete a lap from here. This is Biggins, who's on his last flyer. He sits in 16th spot. He has a big amount of time to make up, 1.1 seconds, up to Jason Rumley in 15th spot. Let's hope this bright red and yellow car can manage to go quicker than the 50.8 here as he comes down to the timing line. Going to try and shorten it up as much as he can into the tri-oval. He'll cross, and it's a 51.2. That will not do it for him, unfortunately.
Brian Stern, meanwhile, setting a 46.3. That is an improvement in time, but not an improvement in position. He will remain in 8th, and it looks to me like that's the majority of the drivers having completed their lap, but we're still waiting on times from Mitch Klarman and Jad Duncan as well. Duncan is coming out of the final couple of corners as well as Klarman, so we will see who gets the best time out of these two. Carl Bess is also on his third and final lap. I don't know if any of these guys have managed to get a lap without an off track here. Duncan does get across the line, 146.3. Wow, that's a big improvement there, all the way up to 9th.
Yeah, it's a good thing he got that one down. Looks like Bess should have enough time to cross, but it's his last attempt. Third lap, and it gets deleted as well. Carl, unfortunately, gonna have to start from the back of the field. Himself and Souza are the only two who have failed to set a time, and Klarman's not gonna have enough time to make his way around for that last one, which means our grid has now been set. And it is Kevin Sandiego who is on the pole, as Michael Schultze is going to be in second, and Matt Quinn starts from third. Drew Chawla starts P4 today. After that, Alan Owens will start in fifth, and Matt Robinson in the sixth position. On the next slide, it's going to be William Wolf in P7. Brian Stern starts to his outside, and then Jad Duncan, we saw his late lap, putting him into ninth. Mike Grenobles will round out your top 10. Then you've got Aaron Sunday starting 11th, and Marcel Eunice in 12th here.
Starting out 13th, Luis Zendejas, and Jeffrey Block will start alongside him. Anthony DiVincenzo starts alongside Jason Rumley on the 8th row of the grid. Then we have Biggins and Klarman on row 9. Carl Bess is going to start out at 19th, and Marcos Souza is currently on that final 20th spot on the grid. Didn't see any times from Souza in practice, so I'm presuming he's not going to be taking to the grid. A 19-car field to start off this final round of the PCA entry class. Of course, they'll be starting behind the iRacing-controlled AI pace car for a rolling start.
Yes, and it's going to be a partial lap. It's once again good conditions out here, 73 Fahrenheit, as they've been starting late in the night for all of the races here this week for the finale, nearly at midnight by the time they get the green flag. It has just a little bit of wind, but really not much, at about 7 kilometers per hour, about 4 to 5 miles per hour that the drivers are seen there. They'll head up into NASCAR 3 and 4, and they're going to be released to try and race. Remember, this is the entry class. This is the introductory system that the PCA holds. So these drivers' main goal is to be able to get through these first few corners nice and clean, and that's something that the PCA really tries to nail into all drivers' heads.
Yeah, indeed. Got to be careful here on the opening lap at Daytona. There's not much space on the infield, as we highlighted. Plenty of runoff at turn 1, so there's room to recover if you make a mistake. But with how close they all are, it will be interesting to see who makes it through those opening turns. Pace car in, we're getting ready for the green flag.
19 cars will take it, and there it is. Green flag is out. Now accelerating down into turn 1. It's not that long of a run into here, but you do get enough speed that it can be tricky on this first lap. We'll see them fan out a bit, but it is mostly too wide. Very orderly here into the first corner. Nobody's making any sort of aggressive moves. They're going to cycle their way out down into the International Horseshoe now.
Fanning out, trying to make their moves. Waiting to see if there's any contact through the midfield, but the racing is nice and respectful. Everyone's giving each other a wide berth here on the first lap. They all know how high the stakes are. They need to make sure that they get to the finish, maximize their points in the final round. Already a mistake there from Alan Owens. He caught the curb on the outside of the kink, and unfortunately, heavy front end damage for the number 41. He's going to fall all the way to the back of the field. A disastrous start from 5th.
He was our highest placed Group A driver up into that point. Now that's Brian Stern down in 7th, as B group drivers are your sort of higher rated drivers in this class. This is Meech Klarman off the starts of the race as well. Was a little bit behind. I'm not sure if he had something happen to him. Otherwise, everybody in front, as we mentioned, was all very, very clean.
Yeah, Klarman hanging back a bit there, and I'm not too sure why. Maybe he just wanted to get through turn one cleanly. Hasn't gotten a black flag from iRacing for starting too far back, so all well and good from here. But that's the situation there on the timing tower. Kevin Sandiego getting the best start and exactly what he would have wanted at the end of lap one. He leads by 1.1 seconds.
Yeah, and we've talked about that in the previous classes last week, how important getting that gap is. If he pulls any farther away from the 097, then he could find himself breaking the toe as we check in on the battle a little bit behind them. This is between Robinson and Owens now, coming down into that international horseshoe battle for the 5th position. Thought I saw Yunus also dropping down the order on the tower. There he is, unfortunately.
Oh, no.
Big mistake into turn one.
He was 12th coming across the line, and looks to me like there was actually a bigger incident ahead of him. Luis Zendejas, unfortunately, was run into by Mike Grenobles coming off the turn one apex. So I think he just got caught up in that. Very unfortunate.
There are live stewards in this series, so I imagine they'll be taking a look at that. Anytime there is car-to-car contact, they'll tend to take a close scrutiny on what happened, and often we'll see penalties out of it, especially if a driver is punted off in that manner. Meanwhile, Schulze is still sitting in that P2 and should be able to take the championship with where he is right now. And this is Jeffrey Block getting through the melee that we just witnessed the end of a little bit earlier. Yunus as well. So there you'll see Jess getting tipped around and wind up facing the wrong way, which is a tricky spot to wind up at this track. It's hard to get out of the way of oncoming cars there.
Yeah, it certainly is. There's not much room for error. You've got grass on the right and the pit exit wall on the left side. I mean, the drivers did the right thing and slowed down, but unfortunately just came together anyway. So that's a couple of drivers massively compromised from that. But the top three are staying together here at the start of the 3rd lap, and it's on for 2nd. Matt Quinn and Michael Schulze are the closest in this fight. Another chain of cars for 4th, 5th, and 6th. Charla, Robinson, and Duncan all fighting hard over the last spot outside the podium positions.
Top three kind of running away from them at this stage. Still Robinson sandwiched between Dhruv and Jad. I've watched both of them race fairly often over in the Porsche Owners Club series as well, so definitely familiar with these drivers. Jad, honestly, pretty handy, so I'm glad to see that he got a good lap in, a representative lap, and has already gained 3 position. Let's see if he can do anything to Matt Robinson, who's within his grasp, but isn't close enough to pass yet.
Yeah, on the oval at Daytona, you need to be within about 1.5 seconds of the car in front to start getting the benefit of the slipstream. And Jad Duncan currently 0.6 behind, so he is going to be getting some slipstream. It seems like he had a much better run through the chicane than Matt Robinson did. So we'll see if there's any change in that position over the course of the next lap. But Kevin Sandiego at the front is still pounding away and is extending that gap now. 1.5 seconds is the gap. I don't think there's going to be much beating him unless there's a mistake.
Exactly. Also, looks like Grenobles and Zendejas both been given black flags, so they'll have to serve those. Grenobles already heading into pit lane. We're watching from on board with Matt Quinn in the number 1. This is our 3rd place car, and Schulze has not been able to not only keep up with Kevin Sandiego, but seems to be lacking pace and compared to that number 1 car.
Yeah, certainly seems that way. He's been setting, mid 144s, but that's obviously not quite enough. There's Grenobles taking a pit stop, it seems. It's not going to count for his penalty, I believe. It's a drive-through if you're straight up black flagged by race control. So he's going to have to come back in and make that tour through the lane. Meanwhile, Schulze You mentioned he was losing pace. Well, he's definitely lost out now because Matt Quinn is right on the back of him here, coming out of NASCAR Turn 4, and Quinn in the slipstream. We're going to be seeing one of our first on-track passes here, potentially. Let's see what the run is like through the bus stop chicane. Much better traction from Michael Schulze, but still well within slipstream range is Matt Quinn. Potentially a move into Turn 1 coming.
And nicely done from the 9-7 there. Let's see if this is close enough for Quinn, because he's going to start reeling him in. You'll see that gap come down between them, but he's going to have to be brave under braking into Turn 1 as they cross the line. Not very far apart from one another, maybe 0.2 of a second under braking. Boy, he looks good, but it's not enough to get an overlap.
Yeah, Schulze did run a bit wide in Turn 1. Meanwhile, Grenoble's here. This is him taking the apron on his way into the pits, I believe. So just staying out of the way of everyone down there. Something happened to Carl Best, potentially, we're hearing. So let's see what the run was like for him. No, it was all well and good. Jeffrey Block, though. Oh, dear.
Ooh.
Okay. Yeah, that's that will happen if you end up getting on the power a bit too hard through that very tight but very fast chicane.
It's the front of the car that's going to look a little bit more like a block now. Unfortunately, smashing it in coming out of Le Mans as we check back in with our field once again, coming up around the banking. Some of our classic plaid FAF liveries, of course, a very popular one on these Porsches down into the back stretch. This is between Quinn and Schulze. Schulze seems to have lost the position. Matt is now in P2.
Yeah, I went back and checked. It was a move at the International Horseshoe. Quinn dove up the inside and Schulze gave him plenty of room to get the move done. But now Schulze has the chance to come back at him. Now he is the one with the benefit of the slipstream. There's no catching Kevin Sandiego now, so these guys battling for P2 will be fighting amongst themselves for the rest of the race.
San Diego came into this 14 points back, so Schulze does not want to give up too many points here. I think he should still be okay sitting in third. I'll double check on how far he can fall if Kevin stays in the lead. And look at this, quite the battle happening behind them down into Turn 1.
Goodness, the number 83 there, obviously not having a good time on pit exit. That's Jad Duncan. Remember, Duncan was running in 6th when we last looked at him. He's picked up some damage somewhere. I think there was an issue coming into Turn 1, and there was. It was actually a very big incident there that unfortunately took Duncan out of contention for that top 6.
So it looks like 10th or better is all Schulze needs to try and clinch the championship, no matter where Kevin Sandiego finishes today. So him being in third, he is well above the margin. He doesn't really need to do much. He doesn't even need to fight Quinn if he just wants to cruise home from here and take the championship crown for the entry class, as we continue to watch just a little behind them as well. I think this is still Robinson and Chawla coming down towards the Le Mans chicane. This is for 4th. These two are fighting, and now we're checking in on that battle for P2. Another good run for the 97. What's he going to do with it?
This is the question. Making your way through the oval, picking up the slipstream, edging closer and closer. This could be the chance that Michael Schulze needs, but he's going to sit behind Quinn down the front straight, could pull out for a move into Turn 1. Quinn goes wide to set up the entry into Turn 1, and there is no fight from Michael Schulze just yet. I think he might be biding his time. It is a 40-minute race, which isn't particularly long, but still plenty of time to just sit and make sure that you have everything in order for the move. Meanwhile, the pass in Turn 1 for drivers further back, as into the pits comes Alan Owens, probably to fix that damage that he gained on lap 1. It's a shame for Owens because he was 4th in the championship, only 3 points behind Michael Schulze, so that mistake on lap 1 could have been the deciding factor in him losing out on the title.
Exactly. So Allen's going to be a little bit frustrated with himself on that one. And they do have a spare car, though, we should mention. So he'll be able to pop into that, get back out onto the track, and carry on. But an extra pit stop here can be costly, although he may be within the pit window. We just rocked up to about 12 minutes into this race, and I think that should be enough that he can get to the end from here. Meanwhile, we come back to the fight between the 9-7 and the 1. I kind of wonder if Michael's trying to think big picture for those pit stops, and he's content to just ride right behind Matt Quinn and save fuel.
Yeah, that's an important point. Fuel saving can be of a great benefit here at Daytona. Obviously, the drivers will have to stop for fuel. There is a fuel cap on the tank. So anything you can do to potentially shorten that pit stop is certainly going to pay dividends for you later on. I think that might be Schultz's plan. Just sit in the slipstream, save a bit in the braking zones, lift and coast a little, and shorten his pit stop by a crucial half a second or so, which would put him ahead of Quinn once the pit cycle is complete.
Indeed it would. Hopefully they've got a fuel cap on there, because otherwise all their rivals will be sitting and waving at them from across the track, letting them know they forgot to put it back on. But as they plunge down into the Western Horseshoe, once again, no signs of any sort of move from the 9-7, at least at this stage. Up the road, you can catch glimpses of the green and black number 2 of Kevin Sandiego, who hasn't pulled away as quickly as anticipated, although it is up to about 3.7 seconds. Big wide run from Schultz there coming onto the banking.
Yeah, and I think that's tactical there. If you give up a little bit on the exit of the turn coming onto the oval there, you'll still be within slipstream range, but you won't be in danger of getting too close to the car ahead and trying to force yourself into a maneuver through the chicane. They come using all of the curb and then some. That's the fastest line through. Neither of them picking up an off track. It looks like they've got that section of the track sorted nicely. But Quinn having a bit of a worse run there than Michael Schultze did. So now we'll see if Schultze is still looking to save fuel or looking to make a move. He drafts right up to the back of Matt Quinn and actually gives him a little bit of a bump, so he's more than content to sit behind for the time being.
Yeah, I think this is a driver that is quite happy with how things are looking right now and doesn't feel any need to try and put the pressure onto that car up ahead. Just kind of let this all play out as he goes to the racing line. Quinn feels the need to defend, though. He's not totally convinced that he's not going to be fighting him. He has a bit of a blink. Now, that can only become a problem if that happens frequently here, as the stewards will black flag you for a poor connection. So let's cross our fingers that Matt doesn't disappear on us anymore.
Yeah, he is hoping. Otherwise, we'll be robbed of a very nice battle for second spot here. Look at how far ahead Sandiego is now. You mentioned we're getting glimpses of him. Well, he's still pushing out those fast lap times, but it's not as much of a margin as we saw in the opening laps. I think now that Sandiego's built the gap, he's only running times about a tenth faster than those behind. He's just trying to manage the race from here.
About 15 minutes into this thing. So 5 more minutes, we're going to reach the halfway point. We could see a few drivers try to pit in. It's not the desirable strategy from what we've seen in the past, but someone could try and get a little bit tricky if they feel held up. Don't anticipate we'll see Schultze do that, since he's going to be trying to save as much as he can. So he'll stretch this out and go, keep going as long as Quinn keeps going, most likely, to continue to save as much fuel as he can. I mean, maybe we'll see Quinn try and duck in because he's tired of him riding behind him for this long. This time, no little hello from the 97 car. In fact, he'll pull out a little early to try and open up his braking down into turn 1. I want to give a little love as well to the 76 of Jason Rumley, up 6 positions from where he started. He shares the hardest charger currently with Carl Bess, but I believe Bess didn't get a qualifying time. No, Bess did not, whereas Rumley did. So It always impresses me when a driver does put a lap down and yet somehow manages to continue to climb.
Yeah, indeed. Rumley having a good race right now, and so are these two. You know, you saw that move there that Schulze pulled on Quinn. Almost got his way past, but I think running very wide in the International Horseshoe on purpose. The battle for sixth, meanwhile, Stern, Wolf, and Sunday. These drivers have been together for quite some time. Of course, Stern and Wolf both gaining a couple of positions. Largely thanks to the problems earlier for Alan Owens. Sunday up 3 spots. He could be looking to make it 5 if he plays his cards right out of the corner here.
Stern Wolf Sunday doesn't sound all that appetizing, but for Brian, he's managing things well, still holding William down there back in that 7th spot. He's got a decent enough toe. I don't think this is going to be enough to try and make a move down into the chicane, although he's going to show himself in the mirrors, just popping out that little bit. And I was going to say, I didn't think he was seriously going to attempt that one. This is where he needs that exit off of Le Mans as we switch back over to P2.
Yeah. Looks like business as usual between Michael Schulze and Matt Quinn, just pulling out of the slipstream at the last possible moment, just gearing up for a nice run through turn 1. Now, it's the International Horseshoe where we've seen these two fight hard. It's once again defensive from Matt Quinn. He's not taking the racing line into that corner, but nothing that Schulze can do to find his way past. And maybe, as we've been talking about, that may be just the way he wants it.
Yeah, I get the sense that he isn't intent on trying to make this overtake. He wants to just kind of ride in there as we'll watch him come out of the Western Horseshoe now and start to accelerate towards turn 6. Definitely one of the more critical turns on this track, needing as good of an exit as you can get coming around there onto the oval for the first time since the start of the lap. And then, like we said earlier, just foot to the floor basically until you find the brakes on the backstretch, trying to get woed up for the chicane. We were watching earlier between Stern and Wolf, and I can tell you that Wolf has not managed to get by, as Rumley, who I said made up a lot of positions, is going to be pitting early, apparently.
Yeah, and that's a bit of a longer pit stop than I was expecting. 22.7 seconds stopped in the box. So I don't know if Rumley's had an issue there in the pits, but regardless, he'll be trying to set himself up for a good final stint, and maybe, just maybe, he'll still manage to get a top 10 at the end of it. The fight's still continuing for second place. Meanwhile, Quinn obviously facing a lot of pressure from Michael Schulze here, who's side by side with him on the entry to turn 1 for the first time in a while, but again, just pulling out and letting the battle come to him. This is definitely a long-term plan here from Michael Schulze.
Again, sticking to that racing line while his rival tries to cover him off. Maybe he's worried that the second he lets his guard down, he's going to lose out there. As down into turn 1, Stern still dealing with Wolf, who can't seem to get close enough into that left-hander. And here's where maybe he drops off just a bit. Maybe that long oval section is a bit of a stronger portion for that number 8 machine, as Aaron Sunday also can't do anything from the back. This trio has been stuck as this for a couple laps now.
We're also seeing a pit stop from Jad Duncan now as well. Replay here for Anthony DiVincenzo, just a bit too deep into the Western Horseshoe, caught the grass on the outside and went around. Fortunately, no other cars were involved in that, but DiVincenzo is now even further back from this 3-car battle than he was. The gap to Sunday now almost 20 seconds. So not much of a chance of him getting involved in this. Schulze, meanwhile, in the slipstream of Quinn. We're starting to work our way through lap traffic here. That's Mitchell Klarman that they're making their way past right now. And Jeff Block will be the next car they come to. Block, of course, still carrying damage from the earlier incident at turn 1 we saw closer to the start of the race. He's going to lift off and let these guys go. Still embroiled in a fight with Mitchell Klarman there. 2 battles on track at the same time. Of course, the 2 cars running behind are now a lap down.
I'm anticipating this is going to be a pretty darn short stop for Schulze, who breaks deeper and deeper down into the International Horseshoe. That time almost looked like he got a little caught out and had a wiggle under braking, not expecting Quinn to be that close with him. But my point still stands. I'm pretty certain once they finally take their pit stops, Schulze should be in and out fairly shortly.
Speaking of pit stops, Aaron Sunday has made his way into the lane for his scheduled pit stop to get to the end. Remember, he was trailing behind Brian Stern and William Wolf, so there's potential here that Sunday's decided to pit earlier and potentially get some running in clear air to try and jump them when they come in. But I don't know if that's the right strategy here at Daytona. Usually it's better to have someone to slipstream with. Oh dear, that's a problem there for the number 23.
It's Biggins.
Eric Biggins. He was already 2 laps down on the rest of the field, so an unfortunate run here for Biggins. He just hasn't had a very nice time so far, carrying a tiny bit of damage, but at the very least, he's still going. No retirement from him just yet. All of the cars that started the race are still running, which is great to see.
Absolutely, and let's see if these 2 are going to be running as they were. Another little tap to the rear bumper of Quinn as Michael lets him know that he is still there, but this time doesn't try to attack him into the braking zone. Carl Bess has pitted in. Now, Carl did not attack the cones like we've seen some do. And again, this is where some of that coaching between the races might help some of these drivers. He left a lot on the table as he hit the limiter early on his way down.
Yeah, that's something that we've seen in a few of the classes here in previous rounds. I recall the race at Mugello in the challenge class where we saw multiple drivers getting on the pit limiter too early and costing themselves time in the process. So that's something else that the likes of Aaron Sunday and Jason Rumley and Alan Owens will be thinking about. Owens, of course, pitting earlier on to get some damage repaired, so there's question marks over whether or not he'll be able to make it to the end on fuel. We'll have to see, though. There is a response from Brian Stern here. He's jumped into the pits, but he is a long way down now. He's been in the box now for 37 seconds. And a pit stop we usually see taking about 16 to 17 seconds. There's what happened to Biggins, unfortunately just losing it by himself on the way into the first turn. But looks like Brian Stern is having a major problem here. He was in the pits there for nearly a minute. That is pretty massive there for Brian Stern, and it means he won't be in contention for that 5th place battle anymore.
Double checking his speed on entry because I wonder if he had the reverse problem here where maybe he came in a little bit too hot. Oh, absolutely. So that's why he was sitting there for so long. He was serving a speeding penalty. His response to Sunday will not, unfortunately, net him a position. He will fall way behind as Kevin Sandiego, our leader, has now pitted.
So is Matt Quinn, who was running in second. Michael Schultz continuing on for another lap. San Diego already out of the lane. And it looks like Quinn as well. Quinn with a pit stop a second faster than Kevin Sandiego. Obviously, Sandiego has a lot of margin to play with, so he doesn't need to push too hard coming in and out of the pit lane, in and out of his box as well. Dhruv Chawla and William Wolf also making their stops. Chawla getting the pit stop done in a nice, clean 15 seconds.
Robinson, or Chawla, excuse me, going to return to the track now after his stop. Quinn as well back out there. Grenobles, did he have yet another problem? He's going slow along the apron. You are allowed to if you have a damaged car. You just cannot race down there. So I'm assuming he's dealing with something that happened around the track at some point. We should see most of the drivers start to hit the end of their pit window soon, but the only one we're waiting on is the 9-7, who we kind of expected this from.
Yeah, indeed. Michael Schultz carrying on for at least an extra lap, and looks like he's, yep, there we go, filtering into the pit lane now. Does he nail the pit entry? He does indeed. Probably slowed down a little bit more than he needed to, but it's all well and good if you escape a penalty. Will Wolf, meanwhile, having his pit stop completed, is now trying to chase down Aaron Sunday, who, remember, pitted earlier, and it looks like despite getting a pit stop 2 seconds slower than Wolf, has managed to emerge out on track ahead. That is great to see for Aaron Sunday, now holding on to 6th spot.
Keeping an eye on what happens with Schultz here. Quinn with a 14-1. Schultz 13-7. Not as quick as I anticipated with all the saving he was able to do, but it does look like he's going to emerge. Yes, just about ahead. It's going to be a bit tight. He's getting up to speed. Close. Oh, he's going to be right behind him once again, exactly how he was lined up as they were racing before the pit stops.
Oh dear. Well, it's probably not worked out as Schultz would have wanted, but there is another benefit here. He'll be able to sit behind in the slipstream and keep the pace up while not pushing. Just bide his time. Probably wait for the last lap or so to really make his move. I mean, we saw just how much of a run he was getting coming through the tri-oval down to turn 1. Very long slipstreaming section at the end of the lap here at Daytona. Potentially when they're coming to the white flag, that's when he'll make his move.
Exactly. And as we mentioned earlier, he does not need that second place. This third place will easily take him the entry class title as he sits. He'd have to fall all the way down to 11th, where Kevin Sandiego is right now, for him to have any sort of concern about losing that title. So how long will he wait? Is he going to stay patient all the way until the end, or will he be willing to fight maybe a bit before that? As we come back once again to Sunday and Wolf, that is Klarman in front of them. So that's not for position, but riding high, trying to pull the slipstream. He's on the longer line, but theoretically he should be making up for it, getting a nice tow here.
Certainly should, but Wolf is going to stay with him here. Potentially got a bit of side draft through the banking, but not able to make the move. Easy does it on your way into the chicane. That's compromised the entry there for Aaron Sunday, but he hooks up the exit nicely. They'll stay in the same order on the way out. Klarman now letting Mike Grenobles and Jad Duncan go. Of course, those two are on separate laps as well. Big tech issues as well for Grenobles. So I think that might be a clue as to what he was dealing with running down on the apron earlier. Maybe having some internet problems.
Yeah, didn't see any warnings from race control yet, but maybe it's just kind of preempting it a bit, trying to get out of the way. Back on board with the never-ending battle for P2 and returning to the oval section. Also, something we should point out, this battle is 14, nearly 15 seconds ahead of Drew Chawla. This has been pretty darn good pace from these drivers.
Yeah, the top three have been head and shoulders above the rest of the field on outright pace, and I think it's being helped by the fact that Quinn and Schultz have been working their way in the draft as well. Chawla, he's been running by himself for the longest time, so he hasn't been getting that slipstream benefit that Schultz has been enjoying.
Coming back to rumbling now, DiVincenzo along with Brian Stern. Remember, Stern a little bit out of position as that was a bit deep from Anthony. Thankfully to not make contact, but it compromises his exit. Here comes Brian. No place to go into the kink. Maybe he could get tricky into the Western Horseshoe, but looks like he's not there.
No, he's not. But now, look at this. This is the longest we've seen the side-by-side go into the braking zone for turn 1 here in the battle for second in quite some time. Looks like Michael Schultz is dialing up the pressure now on Matt Quinn, and he goes a little bit deep there, coming into the International Horseshoe. That looks like a compromised exit as a result. Quinn getting the traction, and he's been able to extend the gap a little bit more, but he'll be looking over his shoulder every single time he comes onto the oval. Schultz as well, looking very quick in the braking zones as well. He seems as confident as he's ever been on the stop pedal.
I wonder if Matt maybe is a bit aware of the situation that Schultz is in, if he's just taking that defensive line to force Michael to have to make that risky move to get aggressive out there, because Michael doesn't need to do that. So that means that he'll probably try and take only those high percentage moves in this race, at least until that last lap, so that he doesn't accidentally wreck himself out and become his own worst enemy, as they'll once again pop up over the curbs, coming through the bus stop chicane and back onto the oval once more. Down to 8 minutes left to go in this race. So laps are ticking away. If he's going to make a move at the end, that moment is coming soon.
Indeed it is. And pulling out early, coming to the tri-oval. Schultz, he's swerving a little bit. Is he going to push it here in the braking zone? And it's not far up enough to make a move, but he could potentially pressure Quinn into a mistake. It hasn't happened that time. Quinn hooking up the apex of turn one very nicely. Aaron Sunday versus Will Wolf, meanwhile, the battle for sixth. Will is starting to get the slipstream now on Aaron Sunday. It's been a good execution of the strategy here for Sunday. I mean, he's up 5 spots, which is a pretty fantastic run in this field.
Absolutely is. And Jason Rumley, who we have on screen, has kind of matched that. He's up 6 from his starting position. We mentioned that earlier, but he hasn't gained any since then. DiVincenzo, along with Stern, matched in battle for the 11th spot. And while it looked like maybe Brian was a bit quicker, he's been having trouble trying to get this pass done. This looks like a good opportunity to try and make it happen, as he's right tucked up behind him.
Yep, the run begins here. And the question is for Brian Stern whether or not he's going to be able to maintain that. And he sticks his way to the inside, but there's no room to get alongside there. So he'll have to take the long way around at turn one. He'll be picking up a tiny bit of slipstream from Rumley as well, but he's early on the brakes. He wants to just sit behind here. This is one of the things that you got to think about around Daytona. If you're embroiled in a 3-car battle like that, sometimes it's best to catch the slipstream off the car you're chasing, allow them to do half the work for you. But it looks like there will be a change for position there. Schultz, meanwhile, still right on the back of Matt Quinn for second. And we've seen this picture many times before. Trying around the outside into turn one, just cannot get it done.
No, he didn't push it that time either, so it'll stay as is. And once we jumped away from the battle between the 18 and the 15, Rumley actually was the one that almost got overtaken by DiVincenzo instead. So that has gotten quite interesting. Back to Sunday, though, still holding off on Wolf. This is down into the tri-oval. Definitely way too far away, the number 8 of William Wolf this lap around.
Yeah, not much to be done there. Defensive for Anthony DiVincenzo. The slipstream was broken, and Brian Stern, he went very deep into the bus stop. He has missed 3 of the apexes there. That has unfortunately ruined his run, and he might be in danger of losing the slipstream entirely. So now Rumley's going to have to be looking over his shoulder, because DiVincenzo, now free of those shackles, is chasing him down. Wolf, meanwhile, looking quick on the infield. What can he do to find his way past Aaron Sunday, who runs a little deep in the Western Horseshoe?
For those not aware, this is a fixed series for entry class, so this isn't a case of Wolf having put on a different setup and finding more downforce in the infield. Everybody is on the same footing out there, and you just have to get in and drive it. He's driven it quite well, considering he's now only about 3 car lengths behind Sunday. Aaron bobbling a little bit on the oval portion as That'll cost him a tiny little bit of speed. Wolf knows it. He's thinking about a move. Will he actually get his nose underneath? He will not.
And unfortunately, tighter entry into the chicane there means that the entire run through the complex is compromised. So Aaron Sunday now having a huge gap there. Mitch Klarman, meanwhile, big problem in the very same corner just a few moments ago. Lost the rear coming into the turn. GT3 cars do have anti-lock brakes, so it wasn't a case of the rears locking. I think potentially just trailing the brakes a bit too hard into that complex, maybe a bit too aggressive on the steering as well, which just unsettled the car. Oh my God!
Well, that ends that battle in a hurry. Duncan and Wolf skittering off into the tires at turn 1. And Sunday starts to run away. So actually, no, that was Wolf and Duncan, excuse me.
It was. Yeah, Jad Duncan trying to get the position, and oh my God. Like, wow. I don't understand how that happened. I think Duncan just completely missed the breaking point for turn 1. He caught the grass on the inside as well. There was no chance he was slowing that car up.
Yeah, that's kind of what it looks like to me, that he realized his mistake a bit late, was trying to get out of the way, and unfortunately was unable to avoid the car ahead. That'll probably be a penalty for Jad, but it's a bit of a moot point since he's having to sit and wait for the tow in pit lane. 2 laps to go now. San Diego on screen just crossed the line, and Quinn, still dealing with Schultze behind him, is now coming upon the moment of reckoning on who will come away with this second place between the two of them. Michael has done everything he needs to do to stick with him. Let's ride on board here. This is with San Diego. Excuse me, we're going to check out Jad Duncan one more time.
Yeah, so this is the incident that we just saw. So he got on the brakes, I think, at more or less the right time, but I think maybe the car was unsettled on the way in, and that just sent him on completely the wrong trajectory.
Could have also maybe been a bit of a hard rail failure or something, because it was a bit strange the way he just straight lined things there. So not sure, whatever the case, he was given a black flag, but as I said, he's having to wait a bit in pit lane, so I'm not sure he'll even be able to get back out to come back in and serve that one. As we watch that battle for P2. This is with Carl Bess heading onto the back straight. Is this another problem into Le Mans? Yes, it absolutely is. Oh, it's the worst feeling, seeing that tire barrier just suddenly rushing at you.
Yeah, that's another case of the rear end going as the car becomes lighter. Of course, these being Porsches, the fuel tank is in the front of the car. This is a classic rear-engined Porsche sports car here, but that also means that the balance is affected as the fuel goes down. There'll be a bit more weight over the rear of the car, which means once a slide starts, the rear will act like a pendulum.
Klarman with some more problems. White flag is out for San Diego, by the way. Last lap of the race. Klarman's already had his fair share of woes, and this one's just going to add to it. I've seen that happen before. There's a little bit of an opening, and iRacing doesn't have anything to prevent you from sliding on into the RVs. Thankfully, there would be some fences to keep that from happening in real life.
Indeed there would. Obviously, not in any mood to stop by one of the RVs for a drink, as San Diego now is on that final lap. He's onto the oval section, and he's on his way to take a dominant victory. He started from pole and has led every lap so far. We're still thinking about the battle for second. It's still not over between Matt Quinn and Michael Schultze, but last throttle application of the race for Kevin San Diego. All he's got to do is wait for the start-finish line to come.
Thankfully, we don't have any confusion this time on what is the last lap like we did with Challenge Class. For Kevin San Diego, it is as sure a thing as ever, considering he dominated this one up at the front and will take the last win of the season for the entry class. Meanwhile, behind, Quinn and Schultz are going to go side by side, and it's going to be close. I think Michael might have him, and he does. He takes that second place along with the title.
He does indeed. Beautiful job from Michael Schultz there. He geared it up at exactly the right time. Switch down to the apron. It is legal. You can go down to the apron on the tri-oval on the final lap at the road course, and you won't be doing anything illegal there. So Michael Schultz executing that finish perfectly, and I think a very well-deserved title for the 097.
Absolutely fantastic stuff out of him. And we had some of those battles in the mid-pack, but they've all dissipated, so they're all kind of slowly working their way across the start-finish line. Only 10 drivers look like they'll be able to complete all of our 23 laps in today's race. Schultz and Quinn going to round out the podium. Robinson gets himself a top 5. And Wolf, despite being involved in that late race incident, still will come home in 7th as he just gets to it now. I think we've got a little bit to go before Brian Stern gets there, as he's only onto the back stretch. It's kind of a question of what could have been for Brian, considering he had to be sent down through the pit lane in extra time. Kevin Sandiego, your winner, but we believe he has come up shy, as unofficially Schultz, who finished 2nd, is your entry champion, with Matt Quinn finishing in P3. Then is Drew Chawla finishing 4th. Matt Robinson was P5. Aaron Sunday finished in 6th today. Then you've got William Wolf in P7. Anthony DiVincenzo will be P8. Jason Rumley 9th. And as I mentioned, Stern last one on the lead lap in 10th.
Indeed, with Alan Owens coming away with 11th place, a lap down. Joining him a lap down, Jeff Block, Mike Grenobles, Carl Bess, and Luis Zendejas. Marcel Yunez, meanwhile, 2 laps down with heavy damage. Same for Jad Duncan, who had that unfortunate run coming into turn 1 and a massive crash into the barriers. Mitchell Klarman, 2 laps down in 18th, and 4 laps down at the end for Eric Biggins. But from what I can see, all of our cars did make it to the finish. So a nice conclusion to the entry class here in PCA Sim Racing.
Very well done indeed, and I believe that is going to wrap up the entry class for Series 11, but the racing is not over. Make sure and join us Wednesday night, April 10th, for the club class here at Daytona. And a big thank you goes to the steering committee at PCA Sim Racing, as well as our team tonight, Reese, Ramir, and Cameron. Thank you so much for watching tonight's broadcast of PCA Sim Racing. I'm Joe Peak. Race clean, race hard, and we'll see you on the track.